Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone, for coming here today. We a little bit high, okay. In this time last year, there were 3 youth suicides within 1 month of each other. It was a very, obviously, difficult time for all of the community, and at Miwatj Health, we were asked to really approach this issue because, there's a lot of health issues, as you know, in Aboriginal communities, but actually youth mental health is probably one of the most serious at the moment. The way we did this was to ask the experts. And at Miwatj Health, we don't believe in urban narcissism. We don't believe that the experts from down south or from universities, or that they've got lots of certificates or degrees. We believe that the experts are here, and they are the Yolngu people. We spent 6 months talking to lots of different groups to come up with our plan for the region. And as you can see on our panel, every single person is Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. It's their voices that have made Miwatj Health and this plan, and we will give you an opportunity to ask questions of them later, because I'm telling you, you're sitting in front of 5 of the wisest minds that you could, so take advantage of it. I'd like to first start with introducing Eddie Mulholland. He is the CEO of Miwatj Health. Eddie is a proud Torres Strait Island man descendant of the Yagum clan. He's worked in Aboriginal affairs for the past 24 years in administration services, local government, Indigenous housing, legal aid, fisheries development and health. Eddie is in his 13th year at Miwatj Health Aboriginal Corporation as the CEO, which is considered by the Australian Government as one of Australia's leading Aboriginal medical services. He has, in the past 11 years, considerably expanded Miwatj's service delivery, as you can see from that map. So we now, only from July 1st, are also looking after Ramangini and Gulkula. So East Arnhem is now predominantly community-controlled health, which is a wonderful thing for East Arnhem. So Eddie, please.
Thanks, Molly, for that introduction. I've got a slipping down on my back here, so if I'm going to stop, I'm not drunk. Sitting trying to wait on it. Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, I want to respect to the Yolngu people who own this land, that's Yolngu people, and special acknowledge for the Gumatj clan who basically run this program, and this is their country. Yes, I am a Torres Strait Islander. We call that Senekes. I grew up on a homeland like most Yolngu, and I was growing up in apartheid Queensland, as most Queensland Aboriginal people will tell you that. Today, I will want to give a big picture story about why higher numbers of mental health and suicide in East Arnhem Land. Knowing the why is a key to make changes. Right. I'm not an expert in mental health, but I'm a product of the system and understand what Yolngu is going through now. I grew up on a homeland in an extremely disadvantaged region, had no reticulated power or water, no fringe or stove. So I did it like we did traditionally, and I left my homeland when I was about 13 years old, and I went into Wyben, which is what's called Thursday Island. It's Wyben in our language. And I haven't been educated through school. I didn't have access to that, so I didn't go to school. And pretty much I started education when I was 27 years and old, and I now have an undergraduate degree and 2 postgraduate degrees, and I've done them all through mainstream universities, not an Aboriginal program, because I wanted to challenge with non-Aboriginal people as well that we have the same capability. Now, after I set the scene here, the people who do have the expertise in this is these people here, not me, okay? I have no qualifications as far as mental health goes, so they will talk to the programs and how we do it after I explain why this is happening, okay? This is painful. Okay, I'll start with current disadvantage. The Northern Territory has the largest population of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island residents of Australia jurisdiction, right? 30% of the population of Aboriginal Island people, get closer, okay. Yeah, 30% of the population is black people, if you want. The Northern Territory was the only state or territory where the majority of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island population lived in remote areas. That's 79% of the Aboriginal people live outside of Darwin and Alice Springs. They're in the remote areas. Okay. The Australian Bureau of Statistics that's coming from, so it's whether it's true or not, but it's theirs. Sometimes I challenge what they're saying. Because communication of when they do talk to people. On all of the Northern Territory regions, East Arnhem region has the highest proportion of population aged between 0 and 14 years. That's 27.5%. And if you dig deeper, you will find that pretty much close to 1/3 of the entire population in East Arnhem Land are under 18 years. That tells you a message that other people are dying very early. And we'll get to that as well. We know that there's a social gradients associated with psychological distress in Australia, where levels of distress decrease as the level of disadvantage decreases. Okay? East Arnhem is extremely disadvantaged with one of the lowest index of relative social disadvantage ranking in Australia. Okay? I'm not going with the data in here, but you would know that, and if you want to ask questions, I can explain that as well. Why is Eastern Arnhem Land so disadvantaged? It's because of apartheid, which is a form of oppression. Both are very alive in East Arnhem Land. Apartheid is a system that privileges non-Aboriginal people. Okay. I must say the disadvantage I was talking about is not the same in Mulholland. In fact, Mulholland still has been amongst one of the richest postcode in Australia for many years. And in fact, at the time that the refinery was closed down here, it had pretty much the highest in the country. And I'll talk a bit about apartheid a little later, and I'll explain what happened in that situation as well. So for Yolngu disadvantage alone would increase mental health and suicide rates, right? We know that. But there's more to come. Okay? I don't like talking much, so obviously my mouth gets dry from talking. I'm about action, not about talk. Yolngu have only been engaged within Western world system over the past 3 generations. Well, to be precise, 50 years, which is 2.5 generations. Because there's been big changes from about 1970s and early. Yolngu have only been engaged with that. Sorry, I said that one. Yolngu have a very strong belief in their social relations. Yolngu society has its own system of law, the Madayan, and strongly believe in their law. This includes ownership of the land, water, and the resources of within them. Jungo-sized society is built around complex systems of kinship or Gulkula, and that governs fundamental aspects of life, including expectation for ceremonies and marriage. And this stuff is very similar to the culture I grew up in the Torres Strait. Like us, we call it Maid. Here they call it Gulka or Gachich and things like that. That's a belief system of ours. It's still strong. We believe in that. I sometimes talk to my staff about that and say, do you believe it? And they, I'll have to, I suppose, I work for Miwatj else. So can you imagine when life would look to you if some extreme group of people that have a totally different belief system and laws come into your society and dominate you? Okay. They change the law and the society relations. They make you a criminal when you follow your law because they say you have to comply with their rules. That has been happening in East Arnhem for many years and still happens. Okay? It's a clash between Jungo belief system and Western world belief systems. And obviously that situation creates oppression to the group who's being dominated. So oppression does not have to be deliberate. Sometimes it happens as a result of a changing environment, that a situation that major changes in society move so quickly that people can't keep up with the speed and become oppressed by the change because they can't function in that. Or it can be deliberate by forcing people to comply by their laws or their new power. Colonisation of Australia is an example of that. Obviously apartheid is a form of oppression. It is a political system that separates the different people, that gives privilege to, obviously, non-Aboriginal people or people of European origin. Now, there's a few things, I don't want to bore you with a lot of this, but I'll just give you a couple of clear examples of apartheid in this region. For example, we talk about housing, and housing is fundamental to all health, whether it's mental health or social issues, and also chronic diseases and so on. So the biggest community in this region has 350 houses for the 2,700 Yolngu people, and there's also 170 non-Aboriginal people. If you put that data together, it looks pretty reasonable, 350 houses for 2,800 people. But if you dig down a little bit deeper, you'll find that of the 2,700 Yolngu people, they live in 191 houses. That's roughly about 16%, 16 people per house. And the 167 houses goes to 107 non-Yolngu people. That's 0.7 of a body, not even a full body. Now, so there's privilege for willing to build houses for non-Aboriginal people, but not for Aboriginal people. That's in the same community. This isn't comparing, down with some Aboriginal community. This is the same community. And just want to talk about the refinery of the clothes, and all due respect to everyone, I'm not having a go at Rio Tinto or any non-Aboriginal people. It's just a fact of the mindset of governments and people, right? There was a mass panic. There was millions of stimulation going into Mulholland. Population, about 3,000. There's a community up in Gulkula which is completely destitute. It's 2,800 people, has never had a stimulating policy for that ever. And it's from the day it was set up there. There's a heap of things, but I'm not going to bore with you, but you get the idea what I'm saying. These scenarios cause severe stress to population because they are losing control of the environment dominated by the law of Ballina and the values of Ballinas. Most Yolngu families are very functional and capable. If you look around here, there's a great amount of people. But that's only due to their resilience, of Torres being able to keep moving with all of the horrible things that are happening to them. But there are others that are struggling with the oppression. And I just want to throw this out here now, okay? If you don't eliminate the oppression, you won't make much difference whether you're doing mental health operational programs or all the other chronic disease programs. It's not going to go away, okay? The people are damaged because of the oppression. And the apartheid way people are treated is creating the diseases. They didn't get the diseases. If you see most Yolngu people that are older than 60 years old, they die roughly in their 90s. If you've been born in the last 30 years, you probably die before 50. So life expectancy in East Arnhem Land is roughly about 50 years from the data we have, okay, which is a lot less than what we have in Aboriginal people naturally in Australia. Okay. And this is worse than Nigeria. Nigerians die at 53 years. It's a third world country. It also has the fourth worst mental mortality rates on the planet, and they live longer than us. Neil, this Northeast Arnhem man in Australia, is which one of the richest country in the planet, Australia, and we can't even get adequate enough houses. I mean, I think the Ghana government tried to lobby government for $4.5 billion to eliminate this. Good thing to ask for, no reply, no one cares. I'm sure that if it was a non-Aboriginal community somewhere that needed 25,000 houses, I'm sure they'd be out there now building them. So oppression leads to a lot of things, and what these people are going to talk about is their programs. Obviously, breakdown of traditional models of education. You know, for example, Yolngu people used to go out and get kids to learn through all of the stories and things like that. And I'll talk a bit about that a little bit later. But that's not going away because of the changes that are happening. So some families become dysfunctional. That means children get neglected. And obviously the results is alcohol use and high rates of volatile substance and so on. So why our new social wellbeing program will work, because it will be driven by local Yolngu using their knowledge and their values, taking back control of Yolngu leadership. And I think Molly said some things about that earlier. There's a word, or a quote, should I say, from Sir Michael Marmot says, to change the behaviour of a person, you have to change the environment. So over the past year, East Arnhem, a mass increase in governance, big companies and non-Yolngu people having taken control of their region in conflict with Yolngu values. This takeover has broken down the strong culture meeting of education, Yolngu traditional values. And we want to change that with Yolngu returning to their roles. One thing we all know about humans, if the day you're born, you have no culture, no belief system, no language. It's put in you through your parents or your society, okay? And so what I'm hearing is a lot of leaders have said that a lot of that hasn't happened in the last 20, 30 years, and therefore they're not getting those strong values from a young, early time. And the other thing is that Bullanders actually, they read to their children when they're really young to stimulate their mind. Well, the things we've done around the fires where I've grown up, basically, they tell these stories, and the stories about how our islands and the Yolngu are the same, and the animals and how they're being created and so on. But in there's a lot of things about the safety, the morals, your discipline, and all that. And that's what Rapey Rom is about, and Fiona will talk about that a bit later. So I've got some stuff here. I'm not going to talk about it because I'll give it to you, and I know I'm taking up a bit of time. But I just want to say a couple of things about Miwatj Health as Molly said, I think you've got it up there, the health Miwatj vision, it's building the capability of Miwatj Mala so they can take control of their lives and directions, their own futures. If you note, the vision has no mention of healthcare or medicine. However, we of course do deliver best practice healthcare. That way we have this great Director of Medical Services, Dr. Molly, who is chairing the panel today. She leads that in that area, and she will say some things as well. Now, wealth is health, is what people say, okay? So if you're wealthy, you're more likely to live a long time. My take is not necessarily that. My definition of wealth is not the accumulation of money, but the accumulation of wealth, of capability. If you have capability, if you want to make money, you probably will be able to. And you can look after your family, your communities and everything like that. And that has to come back. The only way you get that is when you're actually leading, and it's time we lead. And then we will have solved most of these problems. Okay, I'll cut that bit out again because I'm going too fast, too slow. So I just want to say that we know that government has been managing our health and well-being for over 200 years. And it's been a mass failure in remote areas anyway. I know there are some trends up in the centres, the cities and that down south. That's fortunately those people was very resilient, and they've been able to stay in that state and survive and then adjust to the Western world over the 200 years. Here we've only been around for 50 years, so it's been a mass failure. So health in very remote areas is getting worse, they're not getting better. Okay, the data will tell us to that, and I can give you that, or Molly can when you talk to that. So it's time for us to have a go leading our health and well-being and the rest of our lives. Okay, Miwatj Health's been doing some of this. What I'm talking about now is, for example, over the last 13 years, you heard from Molly, we've transferred all the NT government clinics to Miwatj Health. Once we do that, we increase the workforce, the young workforce. We then take control of those clinics. We now run entire health of East Arnhem Land. I shouldn't go on that. Molly's already said that. But we invest heavily in our younger workforce. We have, the data tells us roughly an average salary for a young person in Miwatj Health is 68,000, and we have at least 10 or more people earning well over 100,000. And they're there because they're very good at what they do. Some in senior positions, like Fiona's a directorship in her area, a social thing, but we have really skilled Aboriginal health practitioners out in the regions. They know the community, they know the people, they know the language, and they know what the diseases or whatever the people have. So they're very effective, and they're out called 24/7, okay? And they earn the money and they deserve it. I'm going to finish on a really loved quote I love from John Stuart Mill on his on liberty in 1859, which is 160 years ago. So what we do at Miwatj Health obviously is empower people and give freedom to people. So he said on that quote, "The only freedom which deserves a name is that of pursuing our own good in our own way." This is the key line here. "So long as we do not attempt to deprive others of theirs or impede their effort to obtain it, each is the proper guardian of his own wealth, whether bodily or mentally or spiritual. But Australian government have deprived young of their rights and impede their efforts to obtain their values over many years, and it's time for change that Aboriginal people take control of their own businesses." Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. I've learned more from Eddie over the past year at Miwatj Health than I could have from 100 textbooks, and I think you can see a bit of that now. It is an enormous privilege to work at Miwatj because it is community controlled, and it means that Yolngu people are my boss. And over the past year, I have realised, and I do challenge other people to think about this as well. If you're working in Aboriginal communities or being paid by dollars which are dedicated to Aboriginal health or education, you should really do it under Aboriginal governance. So we can make those changes while we wait for the government to hurry up with this bloody treaty too. The next speaker is Terry Humeral. Terry is a senior Yolngu man from the Warramiri clan who wears many hats in multiple fields, including fisheries, business, enterprise, and more importantly, has played a huge part in the regionalisation strategy for Miwatj Health. Terry is also traditional owner for the most beautiful land in Arnhem land, so you might want to have a chat with him about that too. Please come and speak, Terry.
Sorry. About to see you. Hello. If you all see my head going down, it's gravity pulling it down. All right, bear that in mind. Thank you. My name is Terry Humeral. The rest was, she said it for me, I think. Yeah. I come from Wigram Island. Yeah. Yeah. Yappa and Wawa. I don't know who that is. Maybe we'll ask the girls to explain later. Brother and sister. Yeah. I work with regionalisation, yeah, principal regionalisation. They were kind enough not to explain that. Now I'll dub myself, if that's all right. Yeah, I do that, and I regionalise health clinic to Miwatj. Like now, we've got the whole of Yolngu speaking language health with Miwatj. All right, that's not the point. We're not finished yet. What I will explain, talk about to you guys is, if you want to feel sorry for me, don't look at me. Yeah. Right. The steps. I'll go to psychological thoughts and desire that Yolngu people have and had. Right. Eddie mentioned apartheid. Yep, it happened here with a name called, what was it? Intervention. Yeah, with intervention, right? And that is a trauma to Yolngu people on psychologists, right? Still are. We can't solve that yet, but we're on top of it, right? Yolngu people don't understand the Western system of healing. So what we're trying to do now, and added, and with Fiona, Molly, Miss Stab or Kanambara or what? Okay, yo, Kanambara. They're with her, right? Multi-purposes, we call it, yeah, multi-purposes. Yeah, to go there and do Yolngu method of psychologists. Because Yolngu people don't really go out and get the sedating by putting medicine in the mouth and swallow it. Yolngu people sit and talk, eyeball to eyeball, human to human. That's Yolngu's method. And it always worked for many years, 200 years, up to 200. I'm still sane, I think, when I'll go psycho afterwards. And that's what Yolngu people should do. Can you all hear me? Everyone hears me? Oh, thank you. Yeah, I thought I was talking to myself. Yeah, that's the method that we're doing, right? And Miwatj will be guiding, and now with Raipiri, Rome, the women's leading, because in Yolngu, there's family, territory family, and that, people were worried. That's another trauma to Yolngu, right? That's why we've got to get hold of that and run it by Yolngu to Yolngu, right? And that's what we're still doing, from Yolngu to Yolngu. And there's more. It's in health, there is not, the job's not finished yet. It continues from generation upon generation. That's why Miwatj Health is here, and it will be leading. Right, I'll tell you a little bit about what Molly said. Yeah, the islands out here on English and Company Island, English Company Islands go vessels. That's where I come from, the islands. There's 36 of them, and habited. Nobody's there, it's a Virgin Island, but don't think that you're going to go over there without letting me know. There's a law will catch up, because there is under Yolngu law. Land Council will govern us. Yeah, I was born on Whistle, taken down by a dugout canoe to Gulkula. I grew up in Helco, and I'm here. I live in Ski Beach, working with Miwatj, these guys here, trying to better the world, Yolngu, for Yolngu people. And of course, if the staff's working, we won't say no to the staffs that are working with us. They can too. Right? Get that clear, okay? We look after Balanda people too, the staff. There is nothing that we push nobody there, regardless of pigment or color, creed. Yeah, we call them back, and that's under Miwatj's. Yeah, that's what CEO here, my Perinedi, does. He picks Yolngu, he picks anyone. If you are there, let's do it together. And the regionalization is all about us, right? For us. When we say us, don't get us wrong. It's not only for us, but if you're stranded, we will give you a hand, right? Wherever you break down, we're hitchhiking, we'll give you a lift. And that's Yolngu. Yolngu in Northeast Arnhem are like that. We care about everybody, not only my pigment. We care about all. And that's what all Australians should be. Right. Psychologists, mental health. A word, a small word or short words that says, all right, when someone says, all right, is that rain coming? To a Yolngu person, some Balanda people or Yolngu themselves says, I don't know, who cares? That's a trauma, right, to all of us. Just a word, tiny little word, say, oh, I don't care. That's a trauma to Yolngu, right, because we're all cultural people. We all believe that we were created by the hands of our goddess, God, right? Some spirit, I don't know. I don't go to church. But that's how it is. Or when they sometimes Yolngu person says, what's up, my nigger? That's a trauma. Because Yolngu today are talking like America. They're in Queen Street or Queens, the little town, I'm thinking of that guy, yeah. Yo, Manmak. One more. Then I want to take now time for these girls here because they're all eager now to talk. Okay? Oh, yeah. One more. If you are stranded, you're not alone. If you're hungry, you're not alone. Right? If you are worried, you're not alone. Miwatj is here. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. One comment that Terry just said about Jungian way in psychology is eyeball to eyeball. I'd actually add something to that. I'd say that it's eyeball to heart. I tell medical students and doctors that come up here that Jungian have a superpower for detecting authenticity in people. And before you even open your mouth, they probably have worked you out. So there are many people who are on injections instead of having the right talking therapy, and we'll get to that a bit later with Fiona. Our next speaker, we're very fortunate to have, is Meriki Garma Stubbs. I'm sure most of you would have already heard her speak and would certainly know her name, and I hope you've all bought the third book already, which I started reading last night and is amazing. Meriki is a proud Jungian woman from the Dadawoy clan who continues to play an important role in the bilingual education movement. She works with Jungian elders to develop both ways learning. Meriki's vision is that every child is appreciated and knows that dreams are possible. I asked Meriki to come and talk today to share with us what's happened with the trauma-informed care model that they've put in at Yirrkala School, because it's really been quite impressive. So, thank you.
Thank you, Markapir Molly. Can you hear me? No? Read up. Better? No? Should I be standing up?
Yeah.
Yo Markapir. Until 2017, that's not long ago, Yirrkala School was just like any other school in northeast Arnhem. Children going in and out the classroom, next door screaming, someone breaking the glass, there was a fight just down the hall, things like that. So the principal, Katrina Hudson, myself, co-principal and the director of Yirrkala Education thought, we're mothers, let's change this. But the first thing we have to do was have a well-being program sorted, not only with the students, but with the teachers. All the staff, both Yolngu, Balanda staff. That's where it starts first. So it was essential to have learning togethers. Learning togethers or having professional development with the staff was a must. Because in our school, there are 2 teachers in each classes. There's a Yolngu teacher and a Balanda teacher, and they work together. What my son-in-law said before, he said that the houses are occupied by 15 or more people in each house. Of course, these teachers, team teachers, the Yolngu teachers, come from these such houses. So of course, our teachers are also traumatized when in the community, when they're at their house. So they have to come to classroom every day, teach the traumatized children, and go back and be traumatized again, and again, and again, and again. So that's what we did. First thing we looked at was metaphors. Metaphors. You all have metaphors. Irija dua metaphors. Each clan have metaphors of using the nature. One of the metaphors we used was kappu, water. In the song lines, there are rough water, calm water, water that is very still. Water is, to you, is telling of the emotions and how we feel. So we talked about emotion. We taught the teachers to look out for these in the classrooms. Emotions that can be rough or calm, someone sitting alone in the corner, someone sitting over there crying. These are little children. And what can we do if we see this? The other was the dingo, the cycad nut, the metaphor of the cycad nut that we collect, and we have to open them with pilma only, the clapsticks that man used. But this is a woman's job. And we open that nut and we put it in the dilly bag. We dry it out first and then put it in the dilly bag. And we, of course, have to put it in the brackish water, where the salt water comes in and the fresh water goes out, but in that middle. And that cleanses the poison. So it talks about the poison. We have to clean out the poison in those children, because the poison is deep down in their emotions. So PDs were set up. We worked with our stakeholders, and the first ones are, of course, our elders and the community. And one of them is Miwatj. We went to Miwatj, working with Miwatj. My Ngandi over there, Molly, and us, we have started having meetings, not just with us, but with Kunyangara, Pirikimi, and other communities in Northeast Arnhem Land. Other things that we did was having rules and regulations in the classrooms, like you have to have a little tag to go out to get water. You know, children love rules. They really do. Because without rules, then they don't know what they're doing. We don't send kids home when they're naughty. You can't, because they have the right to learn. So we create other programs for those kids. We have ISIS for ISIS are Yolngu carers that sit with each child. They are what we call caring adults. And guess what? There are men more than women. Men carers who come to school every day and sit with the child and learn with the child as well, and teaching them, don't do this, don't repeat it, all during that day. We have one woman carer. That's about it, really. It's mostly a man. And I can see in them every day that when they come there, the men are so gentle and so caring. And they talk about it when I go past them. They're talking about every child, and oh, I did this with this child, and oh, we played this. It's just beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. We also use calmer voices. We don't shout across the room. A calmer voice calms every child. So we learned that in our PDs as well. We have calm music. Every morning, each classroom puts on their own calm music. Sometimes it's the meditation music. It can be Goromol Yunupingo. So when the children come in, the room is calm. We had meditation sessions last semester. So we're looking for a meditation teacher. Don't all rush. We praise every children. We have singing lessons. We have choir. And most of all, we have explicit teaching. Teaching has to be explicit and exciting. So the children come and it's all hands-on. Hands-on teaching is a must because you can't let children get bored. We have dancing as well with Miss Rachel. Elena sometimes come in. Thank you, Markup, Yoto. And what explicit teaching is like a rotation. So you don't teach a whole 20 kids all at once. So they're all separated. And then you have one corner over there, you're doing something else, and over the corner over there, you're doing something else. And the calm music plays on. Every year, we make a matrix Kuruto chart on the wall. This is what we call, how do we relate to each child? As a teacher yourself, how do you call this child? How do you call this child? How do these two call each other? So we do a Kuruto matrix. So if a new teacher comes in, we have to put that teacher into a family group. So everyone in that classroom is related. So sometimes you don't call, hello, miss, whatever her name is. You just say, Wako, great-grandmother, or child. We have drumming for the more active ADH children. So every morning they go and do drumming, and they drum a lot. And that makes all the noise. So we have a well-being committee where we case manage students and identify them. And then we bring in the stakeholders, the Miwatj and the community, Kieran, who is the special disability advisor. Miwatj Clinic runs 2 times a week, and the principals meet with the GPs every week. We have programs like Kalta, where we learn about the medicines and bring that medicine into the classroom where we treat each other, or where we have programs where 1 week we look at our body, and each classroom picks a part of our body. For example, maybe a brain. One class look at a brain and learn about the brain. One class look at the body inside and they learn about the inside in both languages. And then we present those learning to the community. The community come in and the children themselves say, hey, this is the brain and this is how it works. And things like if you don't have enough sleep, we put on a blindfolded and then machine where it makes the brain think that it hasn't gone to sleep. And then you wake up, take it off, and you have hard at concentrating, how to write or how to read, and things like that, activities. And then we present that to the community. The mothers and the fathers, family come in, and the children present it to them. Yeah? And then we have learning on country, of course. Our wall in 2017, 2 years ago, was just full of children and incidents. This week, there's only 2, and a very minor incident. Our rooms are much, much more calmer. And bless them, sometimes they line up, even going to the canteen, they're all in a line and very quiet. It's amazing how 2 years can be if you put your mind to it. And if you go over it again and again and again. They inspire us. We love them. And I hope we inspire them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, beautiful. We do believe that teachers are the frontline healers, really, in community, and Miwatj Health has, as Miki mentioned, placed a GP 1 day a week in Gulkula school. We've done that out of our own reserves, our own funding, because the PHN said it wasn't relevant. Again, I've got stories like this, haven't I? But it's working really well, and both ways learning. I'm hoping that Miki will come and teach the doctors and nurses at Miwatj as well the models of care that they've been using there. Last year when we had the 3 suicides, I contacted Gulkula School as part of our post-vention response and provided the risk factors which are known to increase the risk of suicide. And I said to them, would you just give me a list of the ones you're particularly worried about, and I'll make sure that our clinicians and our social emotional wellbeing team can come out and look after these kids. The list had 60 children on it. Having a family member who's completed suicide is one of the highest risk factors, and so in small communities you can imagine the impact of that. So we've been working very closely with the school since then, and we got a lot of amazing advice from the Humeral teachers on how to approach this. And so that's where we started our youth mental health and social emotional wellbeing plan, of which Patrick, Arkit and Fiona will give you a little bit more information about now. Patrick Arkit is a ceremonial man from the Willarara community in the Land River of the Walpuri Nation. Patrick has been an Aboriginal health practitioner for almost 40 years and was the only Aboriginal health practitioner ministerially appointed to assist in the development of the National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Health Plan. He is also a NACCHO representative for Central Australia and an inaugural member to the National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Health Worker Association. Patrick's special interests revolve around helping males towards creating stronger families, providing leadership and mentoring for youth, using an all-of-family, all-of-community approach, and promoting not only being culturally appropriate, but being culturally responsive. We're very, very fortunate to have Patrick at Miwatj now, so would you come and tell us a bit about the model, please?
Thanks, Molly. Thanks to listening to the speakers before me. very good. As Molly's saying, I've been an Aboriginal health worker, stroke Aboriginal health practitioner for 40 years, almost 40 years. I've done my grounding in Congress in Alice Springs, and I've worked in most communities in the Northern Territory. And the opportunity to come and work here, when I see in the STEP program and what was already in place at Miwatj, really said I need to come and work here. So a lot of the stuff in terms of how we operate and how we deal in this space of social emotional wellbeing, I think just looking at how Miwatj is set up, and particularly the Rapiri Rom is set up, I think half of the work is done. So the challenge is now to make sure that people like me can come in and value add to this program, to then be able to just lift it to another level. And so that other half is the real challenge. And so just working with people, and I got a lot of experience working, no doubt, with males, but even working with males, I think the bigger picture in working with males is always being, how do we create stronger families? So once we get a male up to this level, we say, hey brother, who's the females in your life? That sort of thing, and just making sure that if people are ending up at this point here, just by getting people to tell their stories, we can sit down and talk with them and say, this is why you're ending up here. How can we help you find a different way? And that sort of thing. And just working off that really good thing of, I don't know if we've got the STEP model up there, but obviously the STEP model's been given a lot of thought from Yulnu and East Arnhem, and I think the way that they've structured it together has really caught my attention, and obviously I am very proud that I've got the opportunity to come and work in this region with Aboriginal people to make sure that we fully, over time, get really good at implementing the STEP program. So obviously there's a top end there where people are mentally damaged, but the level 2, 3, 4 and 5 is the area where we need to rock and roll really, really well, and we need to get really better. And so that if we can intercept someone at a level 3, we can work with them, with or without medication, to then bring them down to a level 2. And so in the social emotional well-being, it's sort of like, where do you start, And obviously some of the things that are really, really important to every human being is the right to feel safe. So if we go and rest our head at the end of the night and we're not feeling safe, that's the problem. That's the big problem, So those are the things, and all the stresses that come with that. I mean, if we can intercept people in that level 2, 3 or 4, we've got this perfect opportunity to come in with really keep it simple programs to be able to then say, this is how we move forward. So in the STEP program, I think a big part of that is just using that Aboriginal resource in terms of when you're asking people about their mental health status. There's a 5-question thing, the Kessler 5-question thing. So it's things like that, and just breaking it down and making sure that our Aboriginal staff are over that. And when I said keep it simple, we just want to be able to grab any program, alcohol, other drugs, any staff can pick it up and run that program. So keeping it really simple, and anything that becomes not simple, it's just simply we refer people on. And I'm really happy to listen to what they're doing at the school, and I think that's one of the really big opportunities for social emotional wellbeing type of programs to get in, have this really good partnership with them. And not only with the school, we work with those organisations where those kids are falling through the gap, can get the same type of service that we offer the school. So it's just working in a partnership, getting on that same platform. I think it's very, very important. And so just little simple things like, if I work with a client, I can get that much outcomes. If the client owned the problem, I can get that much outcomes. And if the family support that client owning the outcomes, I can get that much problems. So when you that much outcomes. So when we say how do we make a difference, well, I think it has to be that all a family, all a community approach. And I just think that if we can get people to come in and tell their stories on a confidential level, I just think that's the starting point, you know. So the storytelling that we have about what's not right or what is right is really great. And, you know, to be able to say and have this really good mentality of you know, if you catch a fish and give it to someone, you feed them for the day. If you teach them how to fish, you feed them for life. So it's that sort of thing that we really need to drive. And in terms of people taking ownership, I've stopped saying I will help you for a long time now. So I do start saying I will help you help yourselves. So those people who can't help themselves, we look after them obviously in a different way. But for those people who can help themselves, I think the opportunity there to just get in and tell your stories, I think that's the real start point. I thank Molly and Eddie for giving me the opportunity to come and speak at Garma. I'm new staff here, been on for about 3 or 4 months. Been out to all the service areas, and we've got another 2, Rummanginning and Gulkula coming on. And we just take that in our stride, and that's another challenge. But thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Thanks, Patrick. I'll just quickly clarify about our youth strategy, which is just a 20-page document, so we're obviously not putting that up on the slides, but we've created 20 new jobs for Yolngu in that strategy, and that is very much Miwatj's approach to mental health is the social determinant. So that's 20 jobs across the region. We're looking forward to getting those filled. Our next speaker is an incredible woman who is without doubt one of, I would say, the experts in Australia when it comes to social and emotional well-being. I do encourage anyone who works at Miwatj to try and sit in on an assessment with Fiona and watch the way she communicates and the way she approaches the patient in front of her. She is the director of our social and emotional wellbeing team, Repiri Rom. She's a Yolngu woman from the Wangari clan and is also the daughter of the late Mr. Gulkula. Fiona shares the same passion and drive her father had for bringing about positive change for her community and using a both ways and culturally safe model. Fiona's going to talk to us about, again, the stepped care and the youth model and why it is so important for Balanda clinicians to understand Yolngu protocols and belief systems when they come out here. Thanks.
Thank you, Molly, for that introduction. It's put a little bit of pressure on me now to look good. Look, I guess so. I've been asked to speak today, as Molly said, on the importance of things like the step care model and basically Miwatj Health's approach to working towards and resolving various different issues within the health spectrum, and of course we're talking about mental health today. So the most important thing, I guess, and it's pretty simple, is involving Yolngu people. Miwatj Health are very good at acknowledging that Yolngu people are the experts within their own rights. And a part of that is engaging with Yolngu people in the assessment processes, in consultations, in advisory groups, whether it's the board or, in regards to case management. Miwatj Health, have recognised that engaging with Yolngu people is an absolute must if we want to get this right. So, too many people, I think the other thing I want to touch base on is we tend to get too wound up in looking for degrees and certificates to determine if someone is an expert or not. Yolngu people are living these experiences. They are having these struggles on a regular basis. So who else, would be better to involve in these processes and ask for advice and ask for guidance and ask for their input? So the other thing that we haven't touched on is the language barrier. I'm hoping that we will have the table come up soon to give some examples of how wrong we can get it in regards to assessment processes and not taking these sorts of things into consideration. So you've got your Yolngu protocols and beliefs up there in the left-hand column. And that shows you some of things that are common for us and quite normal for us as Yolngu people. So to be visited by deceased relatives can be misinterpreted by a clinician as hallucinations or delusions. Hearing elders and songlines can be seen as auditory hallucination. Can we have the table come back up, please? Thank you. Self-harm in ceremony as part of the grieving process puts someone at risk of self-harm and suicide due to depression. Disengaging from the clinician-patient interaction by not making eye contact, refusing to answer questions, defensive body language for multiple reasons, including shame, fear, language barriers, being offended by the type of questions and the way they are presented. That can be seen as all of which are used as symptoms in the mental state exam to diagnose severe depression and or psychosis. Body scars from specific ceremonies can be perceived as or viewed as evidence of previous self-harm, which creates serious misconception where clinicians perceive persons as vulnerable and at risk when instead these scars represent leadership and wisdom. So with all of these examples, can have quite severe and dire outcomes for Yolngu people, and some that include police interaction where people are escorted by police or into the hospitals, sedated, and then flown in out of community into Darwin to County Ward. And that's just part of the traumatic experience. I'm not privy to the experience inside County, but I have heard some stories that are quite traumatic. So we have acknowledged and we can identify as Yolngu people. We know that these experiences occur, and without our input, these things will continue. Getting this right, or getting this wrong, I should say, not only enables... Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. Not only getting this right ensures accurate assessment process of information throughout assessments. There's no misunderstandings between the patient and clinician, creates jobs for Yolngu people. It decreases the risk of individuals going through traumatic experiences, and it also allows Yolngu to have ownership of the Yolngu, the issues that are happening in our communities and for our people. I want to also just touch on what Molly said in Old Man Arkit's introduction around cultural appropriateness and cultural responsiveness. We do talk a lot about both ways approach and being culturally appropriate, but if someone is not prepared to be culturally responsive, then it's a no-win situation. So we need to make sure that it's not just tokenism when we're saying cultural appropriateness. We need to make sure that people are prepared to acknowledge that Yolngu are the experts within their own rights, and ensure that within their processes they are including Yolngu people as part of the assessment processes and throughout the whole case management process. So you may have heard the Rapidi Rom program mentioned throughout. I think most of the speakers here today have touched on Rapidi Rom. So my experience with Miwatj Health started with Rapidi Rom as a young lady who thought that my journey through life was purely going to be as a receptionist or an admin person. And I was approached by a non-Indigenous woman who is a great example of cultural appropriateness and cultural responsiveness. She insisted that I apply for a job that was assisting Miwatj Health put a report that was based on my father. A report called Rapidi Rom Healing Yolngu Families, based on a report that my father did in 2002. It was a huge expectation on my shoes, and I, after numerous, she's in the crowd and she's laughing at me. After numerous rejections and saying, no, look, I just can't do this, she insisted, look, I just want you to write something down on paper and tell me, you know, what you want for your community as part of the interview process. So I did that, and 11, 12 years on, I'm here as one of the directors of social emotional wellbeing here at Miwatj Health. I was... Thank you. So without her support and her belief in me as a Yolngu woman and what I would bring to this program, I started as a community worker and progressed my way up the ladder through to programs coordinator, manager, and then managing various different programs under the social emotional wellbeing umbrella. So thank you, Rosalie, for believing in me, and I encourage everyone here today to be receptive of believing in Yolngu people and truly believing that they are the experts, and be willing to engage and include them in processes around Yolngu issues. Thank you.